Hi, my name's Paul Grogan and welcome to the second in the videos for the Lord of the Rings The Nazgul game, which is due out at the end of May in 2012 from WizKids. What we've got here is we've got the board set up ready for a 3-player easy cooperative game. So the game comes with multiple difficulty settings and is modified for 3, 4 or 5 players. So over here we have the 3 Nazgul with their cards. This represents how much favour the individual Nazgul has. This is their forces, and this is the board. And in this video we're going to show you a walkthrough of the first turn of the game. In the setup phase, what we do is we deal 1 card from the hero deck face up to each player. So we have Legolas, Soldier of Rohan and the Eagles. So I'll explain more about them later on. Also, each player would normally get 2 favour, but that doesn't happen in the first round of the game. And then we will deal quest cards here. Now these quest cards, the number that you deal is dependent on the difficulty setting and the number of players in the game. So for the 3-player easy game we deal 2 quests, and I'll explain a bit more about them now. The first quest that we've drawn is the Battle at Weathertop, which simply gives each Nazgul who deploys here gains 3 favour. There is no other benefit and there is no penalty if nobody goes to this location. The second quest we've drawn is more dangerous. This is Minas Tirith Fortified. Basically there is 1 hero and 2 armies on their way to Gondor. This is an opportunity for the Nazgul players to go here and kill these. If they don't, if they either go there and don't kill them all or they just choose to ignore this quest completely, then all surviving cubes here will be added onto the main game board. We then have the favour phase. Now in the competitive version of the game, this is where each player will put a player screen around their card, and there will be a secret bidding round based on 6 different areas, and then the screens are revealed and you work out who's won each of the areas. In the cooperative version of the game, you don't have a bidding round. Instead what happens is you use these cooperative favour rewards, and basically there are 5 favours and each player will choose one of the ones from the list, and then it goes round clockwise with each player choosing one. In a 3-player game, there are 5 favours, so what happens is players 1 and 2 will get to choose 2 favours, but each favour can only be chosen once. Also in the cooperative game, each of the Nazgul gains 1 clicks at the start of each turn. Normally you would have to bid for this increase, but in the cooperative version of the game, as I say, every Nazgul gains 1 level at the start of that favour phase. So going on to the 5 favours that are available, let's say player 1 decides that he wants to choose favour 1, where he gains an extra clicks and draws a card of power. Player 2 decides that he wants to control the Witch King for the turn, so he gets the Witch King counter, that goes on there, and again he draws a card of power as well. Player 3, for example, let's say he likes cards of power, so he's going to draw 3 cards of power, choose 2 to keep them, and the one that he doesn't want goes onto the bottom of the deck. Back to player 1, chooses one of the favours that's still outstanding. He chooses Saruman's Aid. So what he does is he draws 3 cards from the deck, chooses one and puts it face down in front of him, and then he can choose to put the other 2 cards either on top or on bottom of the deck. These are both quite good and he doesn't want these to come out just yet, so he's going to put them both on the bottom. And he gains a card of power. And then back to player 2, player 2 chooses the 1 remaining favour, which is to draw 2 cards of power, choose 1 and put it into hand. The other one again on the bottom of the deck. At the end of the favour phase, each of the Nazgul players may spend their favour cubes in order to increase their armies. So to increase orcs, trolls and Mumakil cost a number of favour, and it's an increasing cost. So the more you've got, the more it costs to increase your armies. Okay, let's say for example in this game, this player decides to play the Shadow of the East card of power, which is play at any time to gain 4 favour. It has another ability as well, but just for the purposes of this I'm just going to play the simple one. So he plays that to gain 4 favour. Then we spend the favour on increasing armies. Now at the start of the game, from when we've played it, we've found that Mumakil are a lot more useful earlier on in the game, because you are fighting against locations that don't have walls. As the game progresses and you move on to Minas Tirith and Helm's Deep, you find that Mumakil are less useful because you're fighting locations that have walls. So let's say for example this player with all of his favour, he decides to buy 2 more orcs, that costs 2, and he decides to buy 2 Mumakil, so that costs another 5. And he'll save this favour for next turn. Okay, this player here, again he decides to buy 2 Mumakil for a cost of 5, but then he plays a card which allows him to gain 2 Mumakil, so he increases it even further. And this player here, let's say he just decides that he's going to buy lots and lots of orcs. So he buys 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say he buys 4 orcs, that costs him 5. Okay, so that's the end of the favour phase, and we're now able to go into the campaign phase. In the campaign phase, each player chooses one of the locations on the board or one of the quests in which to send his Nazgul. Now, the locations on the board are divided into 3 campaigns, and you can't just go to any of them. If you're going to go to the Rohan campaign, for example, at the moment you have to go to this location here. This is stage 2 of the Rohan campaign, because stage 1 has already been completed. You can't suddenly zip to the Hornburg, you've got to complete them in order. So at this stage, the Nazgul have a choice of either going to this location, which is stage 2 of the Rohan quest, stage 3 of the Ringbearer quest, because stages 1 and 2 are already complete, or he can go to the Pelennor Fields, which is stage 2 of the Gondor quest. Now the decision is made based on what quests have come out, what hero cards they've been dealt, and general agreement between the players. The player who is also controlling the Witch King may also send the Witch King to one of these places, and it can be the same location as his normal Nazgul, or it can be a different location, and there are pros and cons of both. So after some discussion between the players, remember this is the cooperative version of the game, so the players should be working together in order to try and accomplish the goals. In the competitive version of the game, the players are still trying to work together to beat the scenario, but they've each got their own agenda, and that will influence the decisions that they make. So player 1, he decides that he's going to go along with player 2 to Ravanium, which is stage 2 of the Rohan campaign, because they feel that they'll be able to take this on themselves. So he places his Nazgul on this location here. Player 2, again, he decides that he's going to send his Nazgul to the location as well, and he's going to send the Witch King to the Minas Tirith Fortified quest in order to try and get rid of these guys. Doesn't think that he's going to be able to do this on his own, so player 3 decides to go with him. So what we've got is we've got 2 of the Nazgul at this location here, and the Nazgul and the Witch King at this quest here. This other quest was ignored, and also the other locations were ignored as well. In the campaign phase of the game, player 1 first chooses a location to resolve where he is at. So in this case it's the Ravanian location where player 1 is at, and also player 2 Nazgul. So this location is resolved first. Now we can see from this location that there are 2 heroes, which is represented by the white cube, and 3 free people's armies. There are no walls at this location, as you can see from the number 0 just below the Horse of Rohan symbol. And at the bottom you can see that the orcs and Mumakil can be used at this location, but we can't use trolls because there are no walls. What we need to do now is decide what these 2 heroes are that are defending this location. So at the start of each of the battles, the person who took Saruman's aid will have a face-down hero card, and in this case it's the Rivendell Elf. Now the Rivendell Elf has got the ring symbol on, and we're in Rohan, so it can't be played. So Saruman is not able to lend his aid. Then the players in order may play their face-up cards. Now, player 1 has drawn Legolas. Now, Legolas is a pretty cool hero, and he's quite dangerous early on in the game. He can be played at any of the 3 locations, so if he really wanted to, player 1 could play this hero now, but he's going to choose not to, because as I say, it's quite a tough hero. Player 2, on the other hand, has got a Soldier of Rohan, which is just a bog-standard hero, nothing special, and fairly weak. So he chooses to play that one. So that's one of the heroes at this location. Now, there are 2 heroes needed for this location, and the players have now had their opportunity to draw their cards. So what we do is we take a random one from the top of the hero deck. Now, this is Gimli. So first of all, it is playable at the location, as you can see from the symbol here, but Gimli is just as bad as Legolas. He's really, really tough. So these are the 2 heroes that the players are going to be these are the 2 heroes that the players are going to be fighting at this location. However, one of the players has
Seeds of Distrust. It's a power card that he's got in his hand. Play when random hero cards are drawn during a battle, to cancel one hero card drawn and draw another one. And interestingly, it's actually player 3 who had this card, who isn't in this fight, but he's still going to play it because that helps out the group. Now, Gimli is just discarded. He will probably come back later on in the game. And instead, what we do is we keep drawing other cards until we draw one that matches. The first one I drew was the Lothlorien Elf, which doesn't match the location. And the second one is another Soldier of Rohan. So it's his mate. So we've basically got 2 standard Soldiers of Rohan defending this location, along with 3 armies. What we now do is start preparing the Combat Cup. So we take the Combat Cup, which is here, and we need 2 white cubes, which are going to go into the Combat Cup for the heroes, and we put 3 blue cubes for the armies as well. We don't put those in the cup just yet, because now the players get to choose what armies they're going to take with them. So first of all, player 1, he is represented by himself, which is the orange Nazgul cube, and because of he's currently level 3, he can actually take 3 different armies with them. This is one of the numbers that you can see on the click base of the Nazgul. So he can choose 3 forces to take with him. Now, if we just move over to player 1, we can see that he's actually got 3 orcs and 2 Mumakil. So what he's going to do, because Mumakil is stronger, he's going to choose to take 2 Mumakil with him and 1 orc. Now, you don't actually move these cubes down. They only move down when they're dead. So what you have to do is you have to announce, what you are taking to the fight. So in this case, 2 Mumakil and 1 orc. And then what we do is we take 2 Mumakil, 1 orc, and we're going to be putting them into the Combat Cup. Player 2 is also there, and he's got lots of Mumakil and only 1 orc. But he's only level 2, and he can only take 2 armies with him, so he chooses to take 2 Mumakil with him. So currently, going into the Combat Cup, we have 2 armies, 2 heroes, 3 Free People's armies. Oh, we need a second Nazgul as well. 2 Nazgul, 1 orc, and 4 Mumakil. The next thing to check, however, is the terror value of the Nazgul in the fight. Now, Nazgul number 1 has got a terror value of 1. Nazgul number 2 has got a terror value currently of 0. So there is just 1 point of terror at the moment in the fight. Terror is reduced by the Valour points of the 2 heroes concerned, and the Valour points of these heroes is 0, because they're bog standard heroes. So currently there is 1 point of terror, which what that will do is it will basically freeze one of these blue cubes in place. He's too scared to take part in the fight, so he's not going to go in the cup. Now in this particular situation, we're going to have player 2 play another power card, Shrieks, which increases during the first chapter 2 terror in 1 fight. So that card is played and gone from the game, and what that does is it increases the terror to 3, which basically means all of these 3 blue cubes are frozen in fear and won't take part in the fight. They still need to be killed, but the cubes are not going to go into the Combat Cup. So we then put all the rest of the cubes into the Combat Cup. The next stage of the fight is that players will shuffle the Combat Cup, and they will take a number of cubes out of the cup. Now, this is dependent upon the tactics value of each of the Nazgul, and at this stage in the game, both Nazgul 1 and 2 have a tactics rating of 2. That means that they can choose to take 1 or 2 cubes out of the cup. Now, depending on what the mix of cubes is in the cup, and you can see that in this case, there is a high proportion of Nazgul and army cubes in the cup, and there's only 2 heroes. So the first Nazgul player is probably going to take 2 cubes out of the cup. So we'll just give them a bit of a shuffle, take 2 cubes out of the cup and see what we get. Okay, so we've drawn a Nazgul and we've drawn an Orc. Now the Orc will deal 1 point of damage, and the Nazgul will deal damage equal to the damage rating of the Nazgul, which again gets bigger as the Nazgul levels up. So this is actually 4 points of damage. What that will do is that will kill 3 of these armies, so these armies are all dead, and it will do 1 point of damage to the weakest hero, which is this one because it's got the lowest rank. So that's 1 point of damage done to this hero here, and the 3 armies are dead. Now the cubes that were drawn go back into the cup, and we're now player 2. Now player 2 only has a tactics rating of 2 again, so he can only draw 2 cubes out of the cup. Let's see what he gets. Right, he's drawn Okay, so this is all very good for the Nazgul. He's drawn a Nazgul and a Mumakil. The Mumakil does 2 points of damage, and this player's Nazgul also does 2 points of damage, which is 4 points of damage. That's enough to kill this hero, because he has 2 health and he's already taken 1 damage, and it's enough to kill this hero as well. So that's both of the heroes dead. If you were playing with victory points, these victory points would go to the player who killed them, but we're not, we're just playing with favour, because it's the cooperative mode. So, all heroes and all armies were killed, which means the location is completed. So what we do is we take one of the completion markers, that's there. These are removed because we don't need them anymore, so the location has been completed. There is now a favour reward for defeating anything that you kill, even if you don't succeed in actually completing the location. Each of these heroes is worth 2 favour, and the Free People's armies are worth 1 favour each. So that's 4 favour for the 2 heroes that were killed, 3 favour for the Free People's armies, which is 7, divided by the players who were at the location, and round up. So each of the players who was there is going to gain 4 favour from Sauron as a reward for defeating that location. Also notice that the location is worth 2 victory points, so if we were playing the competitive version of the game, both players 1 and 2 would gain 2 victory points for being at that location when it fell. Okay, so moving on to player 2. Player 2 was at the same location as player 1, but he also had control of the Witch King for this turn. And the Witch King and the third player have gone to this quest where there is 1 hero and 2 armies on their way to Minas Tirith to try and reinforce Gondor. So we need to process this battle similar way that we did the last one. So the first stage is to decide who this hero is. Now, the player with the Saruman's has still got the face down card, so that can't be played because the location doesn't match. Player 3 has got the Eagle's card, which again the location doesn't match, so he can't play that one. So we need to be taking a card off the top of the deck like before. So let's draw a card. Right, the first one we've drawn is an Ent that can't be played in a Gondor location, so we discard that one. And the next one that we draw is Éomer. And Éomer does have the Gondor location on it, so that will be the hero who is at this location. Now, the next thing to do is we need to work out the terror value and the valour. So again, what we've got is we've got the Witch King himself, which has got 3 terror. We then have the Nazgul, who's got 0, so we've got 3 points of terror. But this time, Éomer has 2 points of valour. So that's only 1 point of terror remaining. So that's only going to freeze 1 army in place. So we've got, here's the cubes that are going to be in this fight. We've got the white one, which is Éomer. We've got one of the blue ones, which is still in the fight. And we've got another blue one, which is frozen in fear because of the terror. And also, Éomer's special ability, if this battle is in a location that began the game without walls, which it is, then all Free People's armies in this battle have damage 2 and health 2. Okay, so this one remaining army is actually quite tough. So now the players decide what forces they're going to take with him. The Witch King himself is just represented by 1 orange cube. He can't take any armies with him. The other player, however, is represented by him, and this is the player who bought lots and lots of orcs. So he can bring 2 orcs with him into this fight, which is represented by these. Okay, so these need to go in the combat cup. The combat cup is empty from the last fight. So we now put these cubes into the combat cup and we do this fight. The first player to take cubes out of the cup is player 2, who is represented by the Witch King at this location. The Witch King can draw 1 cube out of the cup and that's all, so let's see what he gets. Okay, he's drawn a white cube. Now that means that the hero has done some damage, and Éomer has got a damage rating of 3, so that means 3 points of damage have been done by Éomer. Now that's going to hurt, so what happens is a couple of things. Let's say he plays this. Play when any Nazgul or Nazgul forces take damage to prevent 2 of the damage. So Éomer's doing 3 damage, 2 has been prevented, so what happens is 1 point of damage gets through, and that would kill 1 orc. So at that point we would actually move the orc down 1. But combat's simultaneous, so we don't take an orc out of the cup at this stage. Round to the next player. Next player has got a tactics rating of 2, so he draws 2 cubes out of the cup, and we get an orc and a Nazgul. So the Nazgul himself does 2 points of damage, the Orc does 1, so that's 3 points of damage. Now that's enough to kill both of the Free People's armies, but only 1 damage to Aomer, who has 3 health. So Aomer stays alive, which means this quest has actually been failed. So although the 2 armies were killed, if you notice it says all surviving heroes and armies are added to the lowest Gondor stage. So what we do is we move over to the lowest Gondor stage, which is Pelennor Fields, and we move this marker up by 1. Which means on the next turn, if the players decide to go to Pelennor Fields, there are now 3 heroes defending it instead of 2. We've still managed to kill 2 armies though, and you still get a favour reward for the armies killed. So that's 1 favour for each army killed. So that'll be 2 favour divided between the players. So 1 will go to player 2 because he had control of the Witch King, and 1 to player 3 who had his Nazgul represented at the fight.
So at the end of turn 1 we've had mixed success. We've killed 2 soldiers of Rohan at this location here, so these are removed from the game. Aomer goes to the discard pile, so actually anything that was discarded and any hero cards that weren't used just get shuffled back into the deck at the end of each round. So any hero that you don't actually kill could come up at any other time during the game. Nobody dealt with this quest, but there was no bad effect of that quest, so that's discarded. And although the players attempted this quest, it was failed. So that again goes to the discard pile. We just tidy up the board, put all the pieces back where we were, move the turn marker onto turn 2, and then we would start another round. There's lots going on in this game, with each of the players having a number of cards available to play at various times. You saw that I was playing a few cards, but obviously there's lots of different cards that do lots of different things at various points in the game, and they can interrupt and interfere with the normal flow of the game. There are cards that allow you to redraw cubes from the cup, so if you ever draw cubes out of the cup and you've got exactly the wrong ones, then you can play these cards that will allow you to draw more. So there's lots of ways that the game can be altered by means of the cards. So that was just a very brief walkthrough of 1 turn of the game. I hope I got all of the rules right and you got a bit of an idea about how the game plays. As I say, normal games, I wouldn't rush through it as much as that. There's a lot of conversations going on between the players in cooperative and competitive versions of the game, and the players have to plan together about how they're going to complete the game.